It's Wednesdays. My fiance absolutely hates that jingle. But let me not digress. Welcome again to our Wednesday with Woody sessions, where we interrupt your regular programming to bring you this hot ass mess of a show where we'll be discussing everything trending and topical. Well, I don't know if we'll be discussing everything. This last week was a hot a hot mess. You know, there was so much going on, from Kevin Spacey to Amber Heard and the Johnny Depp case. Finally, after all those weeks, finally coming to an end. We're so grateful. To the MTV Movie and TV Awards, where Euphoria scooped up a couple of nominations. There was also Jack Harlow being called out by Peter for his latest music video where he's glamorizing horse riding. And finally, to the hilarious TikToks of, imitations or recreations of the way Kendall Jenner cuts cucumber. I found those very entertaining this past week. If you haven't guessed it, I'm your host, Woody Woods, who is currently trying to survive a flu in and amongst the craziness that's happening in the world. And I will be your guide through this week's Wednesday session. And with that all said and done, let's get into it. So it is still Pride Month, and for the month of Pride, I decided that I would focus solely on LGBTQIA+ content. And as part of that adventure, what I did this past week was watch a movie called Fire Island. So this podcast might be a spoiler for those who haven't watched the movie, but maybe after this you'll want to log on to your Hulu or Disney Plus to watch Fire Island, which was a beautiful gay love story. So just to give those who haven't watched it a synopsis, it is about a group of queer best friends who gather in the Fire Island Pines for their annual week of love and laughter. But when a sudden change of events jeopardizes their summer in gay paradise, their bonds as a chosen family are pushed to the limit. And I really didn't feel like their bonds as a group of queer best friends was pushed to the limit. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know, maybe someone else feels like, geez, that would be a limit. But what I did love about the movie was how it represented gay culture and maybe the different facets of being gay that they are. I mean, you had very femme gays, and then you had very macho gays, but then you also had gays who were femme but I mean, it was beautiful. The representation was beautiful. It was authentic. I really enjoyed watching it. The storyline was I would say a carbon copy of Pride and Prejudice, which I'm not actually mad about. It was interesting to see the characters of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy portrayed in this fashion. It reignited my love for Pride and Prejudice. You know, like I already have an annual festival every year where I go and I rewatch the film. So this was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna just add this to my festival as something to rewatch year on year. But it was really beautiful. It was really well done. The authenticity, the sensitivity around the different representations of being gay, and how we can be friends as gay men. A lot of the times I think that because we've lived in the closet for so long, we think that it might be, I don't know, it can be a bit unnerving and unsettling to find yourself in a group of queer people where it can be unsettling, but it can also be highly liberating. Let's put that out there. It can be very highly liberating to find yourself in a setting with queer people. But what I enjoyed was actually seeing these gay best friends go to this island and have fun and try to hook up with, and by all means hook up, please. Try to hook up with whoever they wanted to hook up with. I think that's one of the things I really, really loved. It was comical, it was enjoyable, it was funny. It hit all the soft spots that a movie should hit, I think. It made me laugh. I wanted to cry at some stages, and in some stages I was like, oh my gosh, I wish these were my friends. There were a lot of bottom jokes. There was a lot of freedom, and I can only imagine that only comes from being involved in a production or in a cast where a lot of the people identify in the same way that you identify as a gay man or as a queer, as part of the LGBTQIA plus community, which was really nice to observe and to watch. I mean, outside of, I think there was a movie earlier this year or last year. I think it was The Boys. I might be mistaken. Outside of that movie, this is the only other movie that I've ever watched where I've seen a full gay cast, which has been quite exciting for me to view and to see the evolution of the gay story, no longer being portrayed as what we were portrayed as in the 90s, but as human beings, people who have actual lives, who have actual experiences, who fall in love. And I mean, I think that's the most beautiful thing about it. The movie wasn't as typical as a lot of gay movies where it focuses primarily on a white cast. I really enjoyed that this was a minority cast, in the sense that not all the leads were not white men. They were minority. They were of a minority group. In an American context, let's just be clear about that. In an American context, they were a minority group, which was interesting. It was a fresh take, not the regular, not the normal. And in Pride Month, I think that we need more of that. We need more representation of things that, or not things. We need more representation of what we have been fed. You know, it can't always be that we are looking at the gay experience through the white lens. I think that's a bit ridiculous. There are other lenses to put on that are just as colorful and it's just as magical. But I also loved the tension that was created around the prejudice aspect, you know. This group of friends was obviously poor. And they were going out specifically to one party in the film, or one grouping of friends who were of a different financial standing from what you can see on screen. Obviously, I'm not going to delve too deeply into each of these characters. That's not going to happen. You need to go watch the film. But they attended a party at a group of gays who were of a different financial standing, and obviously who had far greater prejudice than they did. And that was interesting. I mean, you find that a lot in the gay community, where we don't necessarily hang out with people who are not in our financial bracket. It's a bit sad to say that out loud. It is actually a really bit sad to say that out loud, but it is a thing. I've always found that it really limits us from having these full conversations around being gay, because in many aspects and in many areas of the world, we're still a minority. Outside of just being a minority, we are still people who are discriminated against to a large extent, whether it's out in the open or whether it's from a legal perspective or whether it's really just in our private lives with our families and our friends or our colleagues, you know. So I really, really liked that was explored to some extent. And I'm hoping that films like this really do allow and give us an opportunity to really relook at our own prejudices, relook at our own prejudices and relook at the way that we move through the world and the lenses that we look at the world through, you know, that we really evaluate these things and that we're not too harsh on people just because of their financial standing. I find it a little bit ridiculous. Obviously, I can understand if someone's going to tell me like, oh, you know, we don't gel, we don't have much in common. That's fine, but you can't tell me that we don't have much in common because I've got more money than you. That's ridiculous to me. It's a bit of a, I don't want to say what it is a bit of, but it's a bit of hogwash. You know, that's a nice word, hogwash. What has always disappointed me about such films is the lack of representation of the other members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I really have to check my own bias, because maybe it's me, maybe I'm living in an echo chamber where everything I'm consuming is just gay content, and I'm not necessarily seeing the other aspects of the trans experience during Pride or the lesbian experience during Pride. There was a lesbian member in this film, which was nice to note, but she was an older character. She was an older character. She was more like their mother, rather than, well, I mean, they referred to her as their mother, rather than just their friend. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm looking for that film or that representation that paints the whole rainbow, where we see everyone involved: trans, lesbians, gay, bisexuals. I mean, the lack of representation of bisexuals on TV is just, it's the most astounding thing. You would think that they really don't exist. And biracial is a thing which we all need to be cognizant of. That, you know, we can just erase a whole group of people by not mentioning them, by not talking about them, which is primarily the problem with such a film. Yes, this film seeks to celebrate gay culture, and being gay, but there are so many other versions, there are so many other representations that we need to take into consideration. I mean, what about the lesbians? Maybe I just have a soft spot for lesbians, that I'm always wondering, like, where are you guys in the world? I never see you roaming about the way the gays do. But once again, I might just be living in an echo chamber where I need to actually just branch out and meet more lesbian people than I currently have in my social circle. But as my mother would say, all things in good time. And with that said, that brings us to the end of this Wednesday with Woody session. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ears, for engaging with this pet project of mine. I would love to hear from you guys, and I can be found on all social media networks. Just search I am Woody Woods and connect. Just drop a hi if you've got nothing else to say. I would love to create a conversation, and maybe, who knows, maybe I can invite you onto the podcast and we could be sharing views on topics or whatever the case might be. I'm wishing you guys a happy and, is it merry? Can I wish you a merry week ahead? It's not even Christmas. But I'm going to wish you a merry week ahead. And I will catch you next week, Wednesday. Ciao.